Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Shake Sulikian, and I'm really excited for this month's conversation. I appreciate the live conversations I have with different guests touching on a number of different topics. I love to invite all of you to let us know where you're joining us from. A couple of housekeeping notes. We are using Restream to stream this to 3 different platforms. LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. There is a slight delay, about 20-second delay. So if we don't get to your question right away or your comment right away, please bear with us. And we want this to be interactive. So please let us know where you're joining us from, whether that is from your living room or a park if you're somewhere outside, or a specific location such as San Francisco, California, or Boston, Massachusetts, or anywhere in between, or other parts of the world. I am very excited for my conversation today with my friend, colleague, and amazing nonprofit and executive professional, Wendy Wilsker. She is a managing partner at Boyden. And our topic today is tips and strategies for acing your next job interview. I know I've recently had conversations with many people who dread the job interview because it feels very performative for some and nerve-wracking. So we'll address a number of different topics around that, lift the curtains a little bit on what the process is like from the interviewer perspective, and how to help you and anyone in your life who might be interviewing for positions feel more comfortable in the process. So again, welcome to all of you who are watching us live or watching us on replay. We will be monitoring the comments throughout the session and afterwards as well. So feel free to put information in the chat. Wendy, welcome. I'm so excited to have you joining us.
Great. Thank you so much, Shake. So glad to be here with you and having this great conversation.
And I'm thrilled to see Lindsay joining us from Marion, Ohio. Welcome. Great to see you. And Erin from greater Milwaukee area. And Griffin from College Station, Texas. So we have a lot of different parts of the country covered. Thrilled for folks to be here. Wendy, we have a lot to cover in a short amount of time, so I'm just going to get right to the heart of things. Let's start where many people feel the most vulnerable: interview nerves. Why do we get so nervous, and what are your top 1 to 2 tips or practices for calming those nerves before or during an interview?
Yeah, thank you. What a great place to start. Interviewing is putting yourself out there, right? It is taking a risk, and it's putting yourself out there just like a performer does before they get on stage. If they are performing a theatrical performance or a musical performance, just when an athlete gets out on any stage. And what I think a lot about, and I've learned a lot, is the mental preparation. And some of that mental preparation are something maybe that's special to you. You hear about a lot of athletes that have rituals, that have a special item that they have in their pocket, listen to a certain kind of music to get them ready. So I'll share 2 of my strategies, and I'm going to share one of my favorite books as well. So I am wearing this pendant. This was my grandmother's engagement ring, and I turned it into a pendant. And I wear that when I have important meetings. I was the first granddaughter. My Nana loved me more than anything in the world, and I feel like I have her with me. So that's one of the things that whenever I have a really important meeting and I need to just kind of like be on my game, I bring my Nana with me. The second thing that I do, I'm a big Peloton rider. Some of you may be as well. One of my favorite Peloton rides is Robin Arzon's Hamilton. There's a part of the ride that she talks about writing the story, taking the pen to write your own story. For me, it's so motivating. It's so empowering. It gets me on my A game. So whatever it is, whatever your strategies are, something special that you have on you in your pocket, on your desk, some music that you listen to really get your head in that mindset. We're going to be putting this in the chat, but one of my favorite books is called Psyched Up: How the Science of Mental Preparation Can Help You Succeed. It's written by a friend of mine, Dan McGinn, who lives in Westboro, Massachusetts. He's one of the editors of Harvard Business Review. It's a fabulous book. And for me, it really helped me to think about some of the things that I needed to do to get myself in that mental headspace, to really feel like I am on my game. I am ready for whatever, my day will bring.
Those are such amazing tips. Thank you for sharing. I love that pendant, by the way. I've noticed that on you in person and at meetings. So it's so cool to know the backstory of that. And I love grandmothers. I was named after my paternal grandmother, so I have a special bond with her as well. And I love wearing some of her jewelry in special moments. So thank you for sharing that. During an interview once, I was asked by a board member, what is your walkout song? And it really caught me off guard, but it's such an interesting question. And I realized that there is one song that really pumps me up, right? And gets me in that headspace, and listening to it before an important meeting is a way for me to center myself. The other thing that I learned from my son, school had this meditation program that they were teaching in elementary school. Even a 1-minute meditation can make a huge difference. And I find the smile meditation, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Wendy, you just literally set a 60-second timer on whatever device you have next to you, and you close your eyes and you just fake smile for 60 seconds, and it changes the chemistry in your brain, because your brain doesn't know when you're doing it for real or if you're faking it. It still gets the same energy. So I love these
Good one.
ideas and ways to continue strategizing. So we've talked about the nerves and how to address them. Beyond calming nerves, what are crucial mindset shift candidates should adopt to approach an interview as an opportunity rather than an interrogation? Oh, I can't even say that word because I'm so averse to that, thinking that way.
No, I talk about this a lot, right? And I remember when my kids started interviewing for jobs that I said to them, you are the expert on yourself. An interview is an opportunity to talk about yourself. No one knows you better than you, right? So when you think about that mindset, right, the questions that they're going to be asking you are those that you know the answers to. There's no trick questions, right? And so I think for many folks, particularly people who work in the nonprofit sector, right, where you devoted your professional life to be in service of a mission or a servant leader, it feels awkward. It feels braggy to be like talking about how great I am. And I've had candidates be like, oh, I don't really like to talk about how great I am. And I said, well, this is your opportunity to. But I think that you can have that humility and talking with pride, right? This is an opportunity to really talk about your accomplishments, to think about those moments in your career that you overcame a challenge, that you succeeded, that you did something that you didn't know if you would be able to do. So I think that mindset, again, it's kind of boosting yourself up, right? It's knowing the content of your experiences. But I also want to add, you need to know the facts, especially for those of you who are in fundraising roles, working in nonprofits, right? Because you are going to be asked to tell stories. And some of the stories that you're going to be asked will include facts. facts and figures, right? As a former fundraiser and chief advancement officer, I believe everything can be measured, qualification, and quantified, right? So know your facts, right? I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a candidate and I asked them how much they raised at their last job. And they're like, oh, it was 5 years ago. I don't really remember that. Or if I ask them, when was the largest gift that you closed? Ah, I don't really know. Know your facts about yourself. Your resume should include all of these things. So be prepared. You know yourself better than anyone, but really be prepared to have the data that is also talking about the impact that you've made. I know I put a lot out there.
No, I think these are such important points, and not just for the nonprofit sector. My husband is in the for-profit world, and he and I, part of our passions as humans for many decades has been, we've spent time coaching friends, family members, looking over the resumes because we've both hired a ton in our careers. And his big thing is, don't just give me a list of your responsibilities. So what? Right? Tell me the so what. What's the impact? What did you accomplish? And a lot of ways we can talk about our impact, and organizations can be measured. There are KPIs that most departments have, so referring to them is important. And I know you mentioned people talking about bragging. I do this workshop called I Am Remarkable, and it's a movement about becoming more comfortable with self-promotion. And I love that they say it's not bragging if it's based on facts. So the more you know the facts and you state them, the less it becomes braggy, and more people feel comfortable sharing that information. So
And I will say too, sometimes people, especially folks who have not interviewed for a long time, are not comfortable talking about themselves, right? So often, if we're in marketing or fundraising, we're promoting an organization, right? We're not promoting ourselves. I've never asked someone to give me money, right? I've talked to people on behalf of organizations. So it does feel a little bit uncomfortable, right? To be like selling yourself. But if you really think about it, and again, kind of putting things, I know there's a lot of folks in development and fundraising. This is the matchmaking, right? As recruiters, we're matchmakers, just like we are with donors. This is an opportunity for you to determine, is this organization and my skills and my background and the things that I care about, is this a good match? Just like you do with a donor and an organization. And so I think sometimes to kind of step away from I'm really humble, I don't like to brag about myself, right? This is talking again with a sense of pride, but also, being able to present yourself with confidence about the success that you've had and what you can bring to this organization that has a role to fill. So I think sometimes it's kind of getting over that hump.
I also recommend sometimes, if you haven't interviewed in a long time, practicing, right? Hearing yourself answer some of the questions out loud with a trusted friend, a pet, practicing in front of a pet, hearing yourself say the things that need to be said. One of the things we wanted to address was behavioral interview questions. Tell me about a time when type of questions. These can trip people up. What are these questions really designed to uncover? And what's the most effective strategy for answering them?
Sure. We tell our clients that the best predictor of future success is past performance. So when someone's asking you, tell me about a time that you were asked to be a change agent, that you needed to change systems, processes, what have you. They really want to know, what did you do? What was the challenge that was presented to you? And then to walk through, here's how I thought about it, right? And here's how you step forward with it. Again, you are the expert on yourself. You have lived these situations. these aren't trick questions, but I would say be specific, right? Take some time before an interview to really like almost relive the different jobs that you have had. Refresh yourself with the great stories, that amazing event that exceeded all goals, that really tough donor that you finally met with, or that marketing campaign that really like, knocked it out of the park. Think about those and make sure that you're giving specific examples. Many times I have been interviewing candidates and they've given me what I fondly and respectfully call like consultant roles. Oh, we did this, or at the 30,000 foot, or, when you're running a campaign, this is what you should be doing, right? That's not an answer. You want to be sharing a specific example. I do think what really trips candidates up is when you ask about a mistake. And I love asking this question. Tell me a time that something went wrong, that something didn't go as planned. This is not a trick question. This is an opportunity for you to demonstrate your self awareness, your problem solving ability, your resiliency, your humility, and your humanity. When I ask this question and a candidate says, I can't think of any mistakes,
Red
I don't
flags.
it's a red flag. We've all made mistakes, and that's okay. The most important thing that a hiring manager wants to know is, how did you figure the mistake out? How did you fix it? And how did you make sure it never happened again? So I would have those war stories in your back pocket as well to be able to share in an interview.
Thank you so much. And one thing, your business partner, Lisa Vuna, when we first started working together, I was on a call with her as she was prepping candidates. She said, stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Keep it tight and know that hero's journey arc to the story, right? Have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It can't go on and on. So as we think about storytelling and sharing our successes, I appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
But it's not just about what we are saying in an interview, but how we say it and what you choose to highlight. How do you think people can powerfully showcase their unique skills and achievements in a way that truly resonates with the interviewer?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think some of it is being prepared, right? Really knowing your work. And I mean, sometimes interviewers kind of have their favorite odd questions, but like most of the questions are the same, right? From most interviews. So have your stories prepared. And I would also put in here to do your research and your due diligence on the organization and on the people who are interviewing you, so that you can form a connection, so that maybe as you're thinking of the stories that you are going to tell from your experiences, that you can make a connection to the organization, to the organization's mission, maybe to a similar constituency of donors, maybe if you've been working in alumni relations and you're, applying for a role. So I would say do your due diligence so you really can be thinking about how to connect your story to and your career journey to the organization.
That brings up such an interesting story that I have about a candidate that I was screening, and clearly he had taken the time to look at my LinkedIn profile, and talking and answering one of the questions, he said, "Oh, I see that you coach track and field and cross country," and he tied the answer to the question to that because he was a cross country runner. So it felt like, oh, he took extra few minutes to know who he's talking to, which is so important. I'm going to jump to a question before we continue with our conversation. Aaron asks, what happens when you completely blank out and forget what you are saying or want to say? Aaron says, I write really well because I have the time to process and think about what I want to say. But speaking eloquently off the cuff is a major struggle for me.
Yeah.
Any suggestions for Erin?
Yes, Erin, thank you for asking that. And I do think that it's really it's hard, right? I'm not sugarcoating. I mean, it is hard. It's intense. So I would say a couple of things. Be prepared, right? Think about the stories that you want to make sure that you share. But I will also say that thoughtfulness is really valued by employers. And I think it's okay to say, thank you for asking that question. Give me a moment, not 10 minutes, right? But take a moment to really kind of capture your thoughts. And I have found that hiring managers really appreciate that thoughtfulness. That's a really good question. Let me think about the best example to share with you. So I think that you can, in a very kind and respectful way, give yourself a moment to pause that shows how thoughtful you are. And again, I also back to what Shakay was saying, find a friend who has interviewed, and I would do some practice runs so that you really, not to have a script. And I will say I have seen candidates that they are literally like reading off a script and no one appreciates that. But practice, the more you practice, the better you will be.
Uh, I have another trick that a friend had actually said that they do is sometimes they're nervous to practice with a live person. So with both Gemini and ChatGPT, and I'm not promoting these. I have no connections to either one of them, but you can use voice. So you can actually say, let's practice interview, put the job specs there, have either one of them speak to you in whatever voice they use, ask you the question, and you speak back the answer, and it can provide you with some guidance. And a friend said they've used this and it has been really helpful in their journey of overcoming some of the nerves and practicing and fine tuning their answers. Again, not to have a script, but
Mhm.
the back and forth, and have some candid feedback that nobody else sees, and they don't feel as judged by AI as they would with other things. So, Wendy, I wanted to jump to the other types of questions. What about virtual interviews? Right now, they are a commonplace. What are some unique challenges they present, and what are your must-do tips for excelling in virtual settings, from technology setup to the maintaining engagement and the eye contact piece?
Yes. So we are finding that for many of our clients and for our own first round interviews, these are still virtual. So you want to make sure that your Zoom has updated, or Teams, or whatever it is that you're using. You want to know where your camera is, right? Sometimes people have cameras that are elevated, sometimes people have two screens. You want to know where you are looking so that you're really able to make that connection. Think about your background. Not everyone has a home office. Maybe you need to take an interview in your car because you are working. That's okay, but you can change the background, right? There's so many great options for background. So if you are in a space that you feel maybe is distracting, or maybe isn't, kind of an office type of background, pick a background. I would definitely do that. I would make sure that your audio is working, all of these things. And certainly sometimes technology fails, but I would make sure that you really kind of go on ahead of time so that you can see how you're positioned and you can choose the right background.
Thanks, Wendy. I just wanted to say we're quickly coming up to time. So thanks, Erin, for asking questions. Others, please let us know your questions as well. And again, welcome and thank you to all of you joining us live or watching us on replay at a later date and time. If you put information in the comments and on the various platforms, we'll monitor those and answer them as well. Um, Wendy, what about if you are taking a call from the car or during the interview? Do you recommend people say, I'm in between things. I will be in my car, even if you have a virtual background.
So honestly, I think it should be invisible unless there's a reason why it can't be. So I recently had a candidate who thought they were going to be working from home and that was going to be great. They'd be able to wear their interview jacket, the whole thing. But they had to go into the office. They had a big presentation for a funder. And as part of their professional attire, they were wearing like a 3/4 with their organization's logo. That was how they dressed when they had, visitors come. And I had a whole conversation with this candidate that they were going to have to be in a different space in their office and they weren't going to be able to get changed. And I said, okay, well, just say that because it's actually a good story why you're wearing this 3/4 zip with your logo and why you're in the office on a day that you weren't supposed to be. Make it part of your story. Here's a funder that I've been trying to get, right? So if you're not able to make something really invisible to the interviewer, make it part of your story, right? But I would say if you think you're going to be in the airport or you might be in traffic, you don't know if you're going to be able to get to your place, I would ask for a different day or time so that you're not distracted. I have had candidates take interviews on vacation. I don't recommend it. You are not in an interview mindset when you are on vacation. So I would really kind of think about, just because someone says, can you do this interview at 9 o'clock on Thursday? That might not work for you because you actually have a job and maybe you have, vacation plans. It's okay to say, would you be available at this time? So I think that's okay. Interviews are a two-way street. You are interviewing the organization just as much as they are interviewing you. We could probably talk about that for like another half hour. But there is that mutuality. So you shouldn't feel that you need to be putting yourself in a situation where you won't be able to be in a space where you could be your best self.
Thank you for that. To me, the interview isn't over until the follow-up. I know there's a lot of strong feelings about interview follow-up. To you, Wendy, why is a post-interview follow-up so critical, and what makes a follow-up truly memorable and in fact impactful beyond a generic thank you?
So I think of it in a couple of ways. I think it's polite. Some of you were raised by parents who made you write thank you notes after every birthday gift. And I know that I tormented my children after their bar mitzvahs that they had to write thank you notes. But it is a really meaningful, being courteous, stewardship. I think that we're in a moment now that emails are getting to people. The handwritten note is wonderful, but not everyone is working in an office space. And so it might not get to someone, or maybe they were in an office and that office moved. So I definitely encourage sending an email thank you note to every person who you met with within 24 hours. I would make each note different to each person and make that point of connection. Shakay, it was so great to talk to you. And I love, that you and I both lived in Westboro, right? Find that piece of connection. Find something that was meaningful about the conversation. Maybe you mentioned an article or something that you read that was, that maybe the other person hadn't, right? Send that attachment. So make sure that you are kind of finding those connections. And that you are that you're including those connections, but make it meaningful, not just the generic thank you so much, the job is very interesting, hope to hear from you. Like, that's not any kind of qualitative substance.
Thank you. I see another question in the comments. It says, Catalina said, I am a recent May graduate, still trying to find full-time positions. How can I market myself when I have a gap in my resume?
So congratulations, Catalina. I would say if you have a gap in your resume, it's okay to name that gap. I have encouraged candidates to put in their resume if they've been a caregiver, if they've gone back to school, if you are comfortable, so that it's not a question. it's there. The other thing that I would really encourage is maximize your alumni network, right?
Mhm.
Wherever you went to school, there's probably a career center. There's probably an alumni association. You could probably find alum from your alma mater on LinkedIn. Maximize your networks. As a recent college grad, I would network with your professors who are working in the industry. I think that's the beautiful thing about LinkedIn. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is social networking the way it was really, really meant to be. So maximize your networks and be fearless in reaching out to fellow alum. You have that in common. So that's a great starting point. And good luck.
Congratulations again, Catalina. Thank you for a great question. Wendy, I know we're at time. There is one other question about asking questions as a candidate that
Mhm.
came up. What role do questions from the candidates play in making a strong impression?
Yes. We always say to clients, make sure that you leave time for candidates to ask questions because you really learn a lot about a candidate by the questions that they ask. So each round is uncovering different things. You want to ask the strategy questions, right? In that first interview, a good question is not where do I park my car, right? A good question is, I've read your strategic plan. Tell me a little bit more, right? Questions
Mhm.
show that you've done your due diligence. Questions can be strategic. I've heard candidates ask, how will I know that I'm being successful after a year? So that's showing that you're really thinking smart and strategically about the role and the expectations. So I would always come prepared with like 3 to 5 questions. You're not going to have a whole lot of time, at least in that first interview. We've had candidates who have said, I have 17 questions. That's not impressive because you're not going to get through 17 questions. 3 to 5 questions, that's appropriate for a first interview.
Great. Thank you so much. I want to be respectful of people's times. Again, thank you to our audience for joining us live or watching on replay on any of the platforms that this is streaming to and will be archived on. Wendy, thank you for the amazing tips and strategies for folks in different industries and professions, and especially in the nonprofit space where we tend to be a little more humble and talking about our accomplishments. Any final tips before we say goodbye to our audience or strategies?
So I just want to plug one more book called One Bold Move a Day by Shauna Hawking. Shauna is a leadership consultant and for many years was a fundraiser. And she wrote this incredible book that is about taking bold moves, getting past that scary. And she has some tips in there. She has some worksheets, and it's a really great, very easy read, but it gives you actions and it really helps to center yourself in thinking about taking these next steps. So I highly recommend that. I'm a big fan of Shauna's. Some of you on the screen may know her, and she's fabulous. Follow her on LinkedIn. And, don't ever hesitate to reach out. Know you're not alone. Interviews are, they are stressful. It's just like soliciting, right? People will say, like, oh, I don't like to ask for money. And I will say, as a former fundraiser, I never asked anyone for money. I created opportunities, right? That's what an interview is, right? It is you taking that step to find out what other opportunities might be there. And wow, look at the value that I can bring to help your organization make an even greater impact. So get your mindset in that place. It's not an interrogation, it's an opportunity of really being able to come together and make a beautiful match for your career in an organization. So thanks for inviting me, Shake. This was really fun.
It was very fun, and I wish we had 3 to 5 times as much time because I think there are a million questions still unanswered. But thank you, Wendy, for making the time for this conversation. Thanks to our audience for joining us. We look forward to future conversations. And again, feel free to keep using the chat afterwards and let us know if you have any questions or comments. We'll add a few more resources there as well. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you again, Wendy, for joining today.